Secretary Lutnick, why did you lie to the New York Post about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I did hear that. Please don't repeat your gracious offer to speak behind closed doors, not under oath, without the ability of this committee to question you. The American people wants to know, why did you lie about your relationship with Epstein?
If you care about transparency in government and holding powerful officials accountable, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Today we're breaking down a tense congressional hearing that's raising serious questions about truth, credibility, and political theater in Washington.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Meng, Ranking Member DeLauro. Good afternoon, Secretary Lutnick. Last Tuesday, I had the chance to attend a breakfast for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. It was their Congressional Day of Action. Survivors came to me, told me their horrific stories, and the survivors I spoke with had one message. They're seeking accountability and justice. After speaking with the survivors, I again went to the Department of Justice to review the unredacted Epstein files, to seek accountability and justice for the victims, the more than 1,000 victims and survivors. And today, Secretary Lutnick, I have some questions for you about what I saw. Let's start with your relationship with sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In October, you told the New York Post with colorful narration that the last time you saw Jeffrey Epstein was in 2005 when you took a tour of his house, which happened to be right next door to yours. You claim you and your wife were so grossed out by this disgusting person, you swore you would never go back. But when the Epstein files came out, it turned out that was a lie. You were forced to admit that you had visited Epstein's private island in 2012, 4 years after Epstein pled guilty soliciting a minor for prostitution and was labeled a sex offender. You brought along your wife, your kids, your nannies to the predator's island. Incredibly poor judgment. But that even wasn't the whole truth. It turns out that 5 days after visiting his island, you and Epstein signed a business deal together. As co-investors in a digital advertising company, Adfin, and emails showed you stayed in touch with Epstein about this deal as late as 2018. Secretary Lutnick, why did you lie to the New York Post about your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, I did hear that. Please don't repeat your gracious offer to speak behind closed doors, not under oath, without the ability of this committee to question you. The American people wants to know, why did you lie about your relationship with Epstein?
The House Oversight Committee and I have agreed
We
will
the
spend
appropriate
the time
reclaiming my
together.
time. I do not accept that answer. We've heard that one. We are our own committee. We have our own reason to test your credibility and veracity. Please answer the question. Why did you lie to the Post?
I have voluntarily agreed to spend the time and talk about it.
I reclaim the time. Let the record reflect you're dodging the question. The cover-up continues. You know what? In your conversations with the president, is the president concerned about your continued relationship that you had with Mr. Epstein as recently as 2018?
I'm not going to discuss conversations I have with the president. That is not something I'm going to do.
If you remember in that interview, you said you would never be in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. President Trump has just fired 3 cabinet secretaries, 3 women, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Lori Chavez DeRemer. If President Trump has even a shred of concern about accountability for Jeffrey Epstein's enablers, he would fire you too. Beyond Adfin, what other financial ties do you have to Jeffrey Epstein?
As I said, I'm going to answer all these
Beyond
questions.
Adfin, what other financial ties? You're the Commerce Secretary. We have a right to ask this question and get it answered.
Again, I'm not going to spend the budget day discussing something I've set aside time to spend on this topic
I'm going to
with your
switch
House
topics.
colleagues.
Let me switch topics. A different and equally disturbing issue, how your family is profiting from your work as Commerce Secretary. Let's start with tariffs. You and the President illegally imposed the highest tariffs on the American people since the Great Depression. And your sons figured out how to profit from the high tariffs by buying up refund rights, pennies on the dollar, just as you were out there cheerleading the tariffs. As a result, federal taxpayers like my constituents may now owe your family tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars. I wonder if President Trump is concerned about you and your family profiteering off the illegal tariffs.
You know that that is false. Here's reporting. I'd like to put it in the record. Howard Lutnick's old firm did not, in fact, profit from Supreme Court tariff ruling. It is just
It's your
not
sons.
true.
It's your sons. The
No,
reporting
his
is
old
it's your,
firm and my sons. It is
Mr.
not
Mr. Chairman,
true.
reclaiming
and you
my
know
time.
it's not true.
I have
it's
asked
not true.
many, Mr. Chairman, reclaiming about 20 seconds. I hope you recognize how fundamentally wrong and corrupt this is. I hope you take accountability and have the decency to resign before you are fired.
It's not true.
I yield.
In this exchange, Congresswoman Madeleine Dean comes out swinging, pressing Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick over his past relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and whether he misled the public about it. Dean starts by grounding her argument in something serious: victims. She references conversations with survivors and her review of Epstein-related documents, making it clear this isn't just politics for her. It's about accountability tied to a real and disturbing case involving over 1,000 victims. But then things escalate quickly. She directly accuses Lutnick of lying about his past statements, specifically his claim that he cut ties with Epstein back in 2005. Dean points to evidence that he visited Epstein's private island years later and even entered into a business deal shortly after that visit, with communication continuing years down the line. Now here's where it gets tense. Dean repeatedly asks a simple question: why did you lie? And instead of giving a direct answer, Lutnick pushes back, saying he's willing to discuss it privately, but not in that setting. From a transparency standpoint, that's a problem. Look, regardless of where you stand politically, public officials don't get to pick and choose when they answer tough questions, especially when those questions involve credibility and past associations tied to a major criminal case. Dean clearly senses that and doubles down, accusing him of dodging and even suggesting there's a continued cover-up. That's strong language, and it shows how heated this hearing became. Then the conversation shifts, and this is important. Dean pivots to accusations about financial conflicts tied to tariff policies, suggesting Lutnick's family may have benefited financially. Lutnick firmly denies it, calling the reporting false. So now you've got two major issues colliding in one hearing. Questions about past associations and truthfulness, and accusations of potential financial conflicts tied to policy decisions. Here's the bottom line. As a right-leaning observer, I'll say this clearly: accountability should never be selective. Whether it's Democrats or Republicans, whether it's allies or opponents, the American people deserve straight answers, period. But at the same time, accusations alone are not proof. Serious claims require serious evidence, and in hearings like this, we often see more political posturing than actual resolution. What we witnessed here was less about getting answers and more about applying pressure in a very public way. That's Washington. If you want more breakdowns of major political moments without the spin,